The massive crystal dome of the Galactic Council chamber stretched across 3 miles of space, floating in the void between 7 suns. Inside this marvel of engineering, representatives from 12 different worlds sat in carefully climate-controlled sections, each tailored to their species' needs. The air shimmered with translation fields, allowing beings of vastly different origins to communicate as one unified voice of galactic civilization. Admiral Vextar, his 6 eyes scanning the holographic displays with practiced efficiency, commanded attention from his elevated platform. His blue-scaled hide reflected the soft light emanating from the chamber's bioluminescent walls. As the senior military coordinator for the Council, he had overseen the peaceful integration of hundreds of species over the past century. Today's meeting seemed routine, just another primitive world ready to join their grand alliance. The survey data floating before them showed a small blue-green planet orbiting a yellow star in what the locals called the Milky Way galaxy. Standard scans had revealed the usual signs of early civilization: radio waves, primitive spacecraft barely capable of reaching their own moon, and a species that had only recently discovered nuclear fusion. Nothing remarkable, nothing threatening. Dr. Kelnara rose from her section, her crystalline form chiming softly as she moved. As the Council's chief xenobiologist, she had studied over 1,000 different life forms across the galaxy. Her expertise in classifying new species was unmatched, and her reports had guided peaceful first contact procedures for decades. The inhabitants call themselves humans, she began, her voice carrying through the translation matrix to reach every corner of the chamber. Our long-range biological scanners indicate they are carbon-based mammals, averaging 6 feet in height. They possess no natural weapons, no protective exoskeletons, no venom glands, and no psychic abilities whatsoever. A soft murmur of interest rippled through the assembly. The Thorian representative, resembling a massive armored beetle, clicked his mandibles in what passed for amusement among his kind. Completely defenseless then? Essentially yes, Kelnara confirmed. Their technology appears to be progressing normally for a young species. They have developed basic computers, chemical rockets, and primitive energy weapons. Their first faster-than-light vessel was detected only last month, attempting to reach their nearest star system. The journey took them 6 months, which suggests their propulsion technology is at least 2,000 years behind our current standards. Council member Tathron, whose species resembled walking trees with bark-covered limbs, swayed thoughtfully. His people had evolved on a peaceful forest world where cooperation meant survival. What about their social structure? Are they unified as a species? Fragmented, Kelnara replied, consulting her data streams. They are divided into nearly 200 separate political entities called nations. Some appear to cooperate, while others maintain what they term borders between their territories. Quite primitive, really. Most species achieve global unity long before developing space travel. The Chamber's artificial intelligence, a sophisticated computer system that had served the Council for millennia, projected additional images of Earth. Cities sparkled with electric lights, vast oceans teemed with simple marine life, and green continents showed signs of extensive agriculture. It looked peaceful, almost pastoral compared to the highly advanced worlds of the Council members. Admiral Vextar studied the projections with professional interest. His own species, the Kelvani, had been warriors once, but that was ancient history. They had evolved beyond conflict 2,000 years ago, channeling their aggressive instincts into exploration and scientific advancement. Looking at these humans, he saw a reflection of what his people had once been: young, scattered, and harmless. Standard Category 7 classification then, Tathron observed, his bark rustling with satisfaction. Harmless primitives suitable for guided integration. The classification system had served the Council well for centuries. Category 1 species were those rare, dangerous predators that required extreme caution or complete avoidance. Category 7 was reserved for the most common type of newly discovered civilization: peaceful, primitive, and eager to learn from their advanced galactic neighbors. I concur with the classification, Admiral Vextar declared, his voice carrying the authority of his rank. These humans appear to be ideal candidates for our integration program. We'll send Ambassador Quindal for initial contact. His diplomatic skills are perfect for this type of first encounter. The Council members clicked, buzzed, and chimed their approval through their respective communication methods. Ambassador Quindal was known throughout the galaxy for his gentle approach to new species. His silver, humanoid form and calm demeanor had successfully welcomed dozens of primitive civilizations into the galactic community. The humans should integrate smoothly, Kelnara added, storing her data files. Our psychological profiles suggest they are naturally curious and cooperative. They appear to value learning and technological advancement, which makes them ideal candidates for our educational exchange programs. As the meeting concluded, Admiral Vextar reflected on how routine this had become. 847 species had joined their peaceful coalition over the centuries. Each new addition brought fresh perspectives, new scientific insights, and expanded the galaxy's knowledge base. These humans would be number 848, another small success story in the Council's mission to unite all intelligent life under the banner of peace and cooperation. The massive chamber began to empty as representatives returned to their respective ships and worlds. None of them suspected that their assessment would prove to be the most catastrophic mistake in galactic history. Ambassador Quindal's sleek diplomatic vessel, the Harmony's Voice, broke through Earth's atmosphere like a silver needle piercing blue silk. The ship's bioadaptive hull shifted colors from deep space black to a calming pearl white as it descended, a feature designed to appear non-threatening to primitive species. Advanced cloaking systems had hidden their approach until the last moment, when they broadcast standard first contact protocols on all human communication frequencies. The response had been immediate and overwhelming. Within minutes, every human radio telescope, satellite array, and military installation on the planet had focused on their ship. Most species took days or weeks to organize a proper diplomatic response. These humans had managed it in less than an hour. Now, hovering above what the humans called New York City, Quindal marveled at the sprawling metropolis below. Millions of lights twinkled in geometric patterns, while primitive aircraft buzzed between towering structures of glass and steel. The city never seemed to sleep, with constant movement flowing through its arteries like blood through a living organism. The landing platform they had designated was actually a hastily cleared section of what humans called Central Park. Military vehicles surrounded the area in precise formations, while crowds of curious humans pressed against barriers held by uniformed peacekeepers. Their enthusiasm was almost infectious, though Quindal noted the military presence with professional interest. Most primitive species greeted their first alien visitors with either fear or wonder. These humans displayed both, along with what appeared to be careful preparation. As the Harmony's Voice settled onto the grass with barely a whisper, Quindal activated his personal translation matrix and checked his appearance in the ship's mirror system. His silver humanoid form had been chosen specifically for first contact situations. Tall enough to command respect but not tower menacingly, with features familiar enough to put most bipedal species at ease. His natural empathic abilities would help him read the emotional undercurrents of this first meeting. The ship's exit ramp extended with a soft hiss, and Quindal stepped onto Earth's soil for the first time. The air tasted different here, rich with organic compounds and industrial traces that spoke of a young, active civilization. The crowd's excitement was palpable, their emotions washing over him in waves of curiosity, hope, and barely contained excitement. President Kate Williams approached with confident strides, flanked by advisors and military officials. Quindal had studied her file during the descent. A former military officer turned politician, she had led her nation through several international crises with remarkable skill. Her people clearly trusted her judgment, which made her the ideal first contact representative. "Welcome to Earth," she said, extending her hand in what his cultural database identified as a gesture of peaceful greeting. "We're honored by your visit." Quindal accepted the handshake, noting the firmness of her grip and the steadiness of her gaze. Most primitive species showed some degree of intimidation when meeting their first alien, but President Williams appeared remarkably composed. "The honor is ours, President Williams," Quindal replied, his translation matrix converting his thoughts into perfect English. "The Galactic Council is pleased to make contact with your species." The formal ceremonies proceeded smoothly. Gifts were exchanged, with the humans presenting samples of their art, music, and literature, while Quindal offered basic medical technology and agricultural improvements. The humans absorbed everything with remarkable focus, asking detailed questions about galactic trade routes, interstellar law, and technological exchange programs. "We're particularly interested in your faster-than-light communication systems," said Dr. Benjamin Price, Earth's lead scientist. "Our current technology requires months to send messages between star systems." Quindal found their eagerness refreshing. Unlike many primitive species who became overwhelmed by advanced concepts, these humans seemed to grasp complex ideas quickly and immediately see practical applications. The cultural exchange began 3 days later in a specially constructed facility outside the city. As was standard protocol, both sides shared historical records to help build understanding between their peoples. Quindal accessed the human data networks with growing fascination, marveling at their rich artistic traditions and rapid technological development. Then he reached their military history files. The sheer volume of data was staggering. Wars, conflicts, battles, sieges, tactical innovations, strategic documents, weapons development, and something they called military doctrine filled terabytes of information. Every human century seemed to contain dozens of conflicts, each more sophisticated than the last. "You've been fighting wars for your entire recorded history?" Quindal asked during their next diplomatic session, unable to hide his confusion. His translator worked overtime to process concepts that had no equivalent in galactic standard language. General Robert Hayes, President William's military advisor, nodded with casual acceptance. "Pretty much, though we've gotten better at it over time." "Better at it?" Quindal's empathic abilities detected no shame or regret in the general's emotional signature, only professional pride. The translator struggled with the concept. Every known galactic species had evolved past internal conflict once they achieved basic civilization. War was considered a primitive impulse that intelligent beings naturally outgrew. "Innovation through adversity," President Williams explained, her smile somehow not reaching her eyes. There was something deeper there, something his empathic abilities couldn't quite read. "Conflict has been one of our greatest teachers." Quindal felt a chill that had nothing to do with Earth's temperature. In all his centuries of diplomatic service, he had never encountered a species that spoke of warfare with such casual acceptance. Most primitive species were ashamed of their violent past, eager to leave such behavior behind as they joined the galactic community. These humans spoke of war like it was simply another form of education. The research vessel Serenity's Dream drifted peacefully through the Kepler Nebula, its bioluminescent hull pulsing with soft blue light as it collected samples from the cosmic dust clouds. Dr. Kelnara stood in the observation deck, watching her team of scientists work with quiet satisfaction. This was exactly the kind of routine mission she loved, exploring the galaxy's wonders, gathering knowledge that would benefit all Council species. The ship itself was a marvel of peaceful engineering. Built by the Thorian beetle-like species, it featured living metal walls that could repair themselves and weapon systems designed purely for defense. The Serenity's Dream had never fired a shot in anger during its 40-year service record. Like most Council vessels, it was built for discovery, not destruction. The crew of 36 represented 7 different species, all working together in the harmony that defined galactic civilization. Thorian engineers maintained the ship's systems, while Kelvani navigators plotted their course through the nebula's shifting magnetic fields. Tree-like Verdani botanists studied the organic compounds floating in the cosmic dust, and crystalline Zephyrians analyzed the energy patterns with their natural ability to perceive electromagnetic fields. The attack came without warning. One moment, the Serenity's Dream was alone in the vast emptiness of space. The next, 3 sleek black ships materialized from nowhere, their hulls reflecting no light at all. The Council sensors should have detected any approaching vessel, but these ships seemed to have appeared from thin air. "Unknown vessels, this is Dr. Kelnara of the Galactic Council research ship Serenity's Dream," she broadcast on standard frequencies. "Please identify yourselves and state your intentions." The response came in perfect galactic standard, spoken with an accent that made Kelnara's crystalline form ring with alarm. "This is Captain Lisa Park of the independent vessel Ghost Runner. You are hereby ordered to surrender your ship and cargo." Pirates? Kelnara had read about them in historical texts, but actual piracy had been virtually eliminated from Council space centuries ago. Most civilized species had evolved past such behavior. But as she studied the attacking ships more closely, her worst fears were confirmed. The vessels bore no Council registration marks and their design was unfamiliar, yet somehow familiar at the same time. These were human ships. Captain Park's vessel, the Ghost Runner, was a masterpiece of predatory engineering. Where Council ships were built for beauty and function, this human craft was pure efficiency. Its angular hull deflected sensor scans, while weapon ports opened like hungry mouths along its sides. The 2 escort ships flanked the Serenity's Dream with military precision, cutting off any escape routes. "You have 60 seconds to power down your engines and surrender," Captain Park announced, her voice carrying an edge of cold professionalism that made Kelnara's internal crystals resonate with fear. "Comply and no one will be harmed." The Serenity's Dream's captain, a peaceful Verdani named Grovesinger, activated the ship's defensive systems. Energy shields flickered to life around the research vessel while point defense turrets emerged from hidden compartments. The weapons were designed to disable rather than destroy, following Council protocols for civilized conflict resolution. "We cannot surrender our research data," Grovesinger replied, his bark-covered limbs trembling slightly. "It contains vital scientific information for the benefit of all species." Captain Park's laughter crackled across the communication channel, a sound that sent chills through the alien crew. "Then I guess we'll have to take it." What happened next shattered everything the Council species thought they knew about combat. The human ships didn't charge forward in a straightforward assault like civilized warriors. Instead, they began what could only be described as a dance of death. The Ghost Runner fired precise bursts at the Serenity's Dream shield generators, but not to destroy them. Each shot was calculated to create specific resonance frequencies that disrupted the shield matrix in ways the aliens had never experienced. Within minutes, their supposedly impenetrable defenses were full of holes. The escort ships launched what appeared to be communication drones, but these devices began broadcasting on frequencies that interfered with the research vessel's internal systems. Lights flickered, artificial gravity fluctuated, and the translation matrix started producing nonsensical phrases. The humans were using psychological warfare, turning the ship's own systems against its crew. "This is impossible," whispered Commander Taithvor from the bridge. "Their weapons are primitive compared to ours." But the humans weren't relying on superior technology. They were using superior tactics. Every move they made seemed to anticipate the Council ship's responses. When the Serenity's Dream tried to transmit a distress signal, the human ships jammed the transmission with precisely timed interference. When the alien crew attempted evasive maneuvers, the attackers were already in position to counter. Dr. Kelnara watched in horror as boarding pods launched from the human vessels. These weren't the standard diplomatic shuttles used in civilized conflicts. They were armored penetrators that cut through the research ship's hull like knives through paper, sealing the breaches behind them to prevent decompression. The humans who emerged wore sleek combat suits that made them look like walking shadows. They moved through the ship's corridors with deadly efficiency, using stun weapons that left the alien crew unconscious but unharmed. But it was their tactics that truly terrified the survivors. The humans didn't just overwhelm their opponents with superior force. They used the aliens' own peaceful nature against them. They herded the crew into specific areas, then used the ship's communication system to broadcast surrender demands that played on each species' particular psychological vulnerabilities. "Surrender and you won't be harmed," Captain Park's voice echoed through the corridors, but somehow each crew member heard the words in a way that spoke to their deepest fears. Dr. Kelnara managed to transmit one final message to the Council before a human soldier gently but firmly escorted her to a holding area. "They're not fighting like any species we've encountered. They're not trying to prove their strength or claim territory. They're fighting like predators. Like they're hunting." When Council security forces arrived 6 hours later, they found the Serenity's Dream floating dead in space. The human pirates had vanished as mysteriously as they had appeared, leaving behind a ship stripped of everything valuable and a crew whose minds were filled with tactics they couldn't understand. The aliens had just received their first lesson in human warfare, and they were completely unprepared for what it meant. The Council's war room had never seen anything like this before. Located deep within the fortress moon of Caridian Prime, the chamber was designed for the peaceful resolution of conflicts that arose maybe once per century. Its holographic displays usually showed trade route disputes or territorial negotiations between civilized species. Now, those same displays projected scenes of destruction that made the assembled alien commanders recoil in shock. Admiral Vextar stood before the central projection table, his 6 eyes fixed on the replay of the Serenity's Dream attack. The footage had been analyzed frame by the Council's best military minds, but nothing in their experience had prepared them for what they were seeing. The human ships moved like living predators, their every action calculated not just to win, but to terrorize. "Run it again," Commander Zethkol demanded, her insect-like mandibles clicking nervously. As head of Council security forces, she had studied every known form of space combat. This was something entirely new. The hologram flickered to life once more, showing Captain Park's ships materializing from what appeared to be empty space. The Council's top engineers had spent days trying to understand how primitive human technology had defeated their advanced sensors. The answer, when it came, was more disturbing than any technical breakthrough. The humans hadn't used superior technology. They had used deception, making their ships appear to be debris by matching their heat signatures to the surrounding space junk. It was a tactic so simple that no civilized species had ever considered it, because it required a level of cunning that went against every principle of honorable warfare. "The psychological impact is what troubles me most," reported Dr. Velnara, the Council's military psychologist. Her crystalline form shimmered with anxiety as she reviewed the survivor interviews. The research crew isn't just traumatized by the attack itself. They're haunted by how efficiently the humans anticipated their every response. Admiral Vextar nodded grimly. His own species, the Kelvani, had been warriors once, but their conflicts had been straightforward affairs of strength against strength, courage against courage. These humans fought like they were solving puzzles, turning their enemies' own strengths into weaknesses. The chamber's massive doors slid open with a soft hiss, and General Mike Thompson entered with the measured stride of a professional soldier. The human liaison officer had been requested to provide insight into his species' military capabilities, though the alien commanders weren't sure they wanted to hear what he had to say. Thompson was a compact man with gray hair and eyes that seemed to catalog every detail of his surroundings. His uniform bore no elaborate decorations, just simple rank insignia and a small flag patch representing his home nation. Yet something in his bearing made the room's advanced alien warriors instinctively step back. "Gentlemen, ladies," Thompson began, his translator converting his words into a dozen different alien languages simultaneously. "I understand you want to know how we fight." Admiral Vextar gestured to the holographic display still showing the pirate attack. "Your people's tactics are unlike anything we've encountered. We need to understand how a species with primitive technology could defeat our most advanced systems." Thompson studied the replay with professional interest, as if he were watching a training exercise rather than actual combat footage. Captain Park executed a textbook isolation and exploitation strategy. Very clean work. The casual way he discussed the attack sent ripples of unease through the assembled aliens. Commander Zeth Cole's mandibles clicked rapidly. Clean work? That was an act of piracy that traumatized an entire research crew. Effective piracy, Thompson corrected without emotion. She achieved her objectives with minimal casualties and maximum psychological impact. That's the mark of a professional. He moved to the central control panel, his fingers dancing across the holographic interface with surprising familiarity. "May I demonstrate some basic human strategic concepts?" The display changed, showing a theoretical battle scenario between two equally matched fleets. Thompson began to manipulate the variables, his movements causing the projected ships to dance through space in complex patterns. "The key to human warfare," he explained, "is to make your enemy defeat themselves. We call it asymmetric strategy. Instead of matching strength against strength, you find ways to turn the enemy's advantages into disadvantages." The alien commanders watched in fascination as Thompson's theoretical human fleet began to systematically dismantle a superior force. But they weren't using better weapons or stronger shields. Instead, they were using tactics that seemed to violate every principle of honorable combat. "You're targeting their supply lines," observed Commander Tathmore, his tree-like branches rustling with distress. "But those ships aren't military vessels. They're carrying medical supplies and food." "Exactly," Thompson replied. "Force them to choose between feeding their civilians or fueling their war machine. Most species will choose their people, which makes them predictable." The room fell into shocked silence. Dr. Velnara's crystalline form rang like wind chimes as she trembled. "But that's using their compassion against them. It's turning their greatest strength into a vulnerability." "Now you're beginning to understand," Thompson said with something that might have been approval. "Psychological warfare, guerrilla tactics, information operations, economic pressure, cultural infiltration. We have entire academic disciplines devoted to making enemies defeat themselves." Admiral Vextar felt his combat instincts, dormant for centuries, stirring uneasily. "But this is barbaric. Civilized warfare has rules, protocols, limits." "Effective," Thompson corrected, his voice carrying no judgment, only professional assessment. "We learned to fight the most dangerous opponent in the universe, ourselves. Every human conflict made us better at war because we were always facing an enemy as clever, determined, and ruthless as we were." The implications hit the alien commanders like a physical blow. Every other species in the galaxy had evolved by overcoming external threats: predators, natural disasters, resource scarcity. They had learned cooperation through necessity, developing honor codes and ethical frameworks to prevent self-destruction. Humans had taken a different path. They had spent millennia in constant competition with other humans, each conflict forcing both sides to develop new strategies, new technologies, new ways of thinking about warfare itself. They hadn't learned to cooperate despite their violent nature. They had learned to be more efficiently violent. Commander Zeth Cole's voice was barely a whisper. "You turned yourselves into the perfect predators. Thompson's smile was cold and professional. We prefer to think of it as evolution in action. The fortress moon of Caridian Prime had never been sealed with such extreme security measures. Every approach vector was monitored by automated defense platforms, while Council warships formed protective rings around the ancient seat of galactic government. Inside the crystalline dome of the emergency chamber, representatives from all 12 species gathered with expressions of barely controlled panic. The usual ceremonial protocols had been abandoned. No welcoming songs from the Verdani tree people, no harmony displays from the crystalline Zephyrians, no clicking salutes from the Thorian beetles. The assembly had been called for one purpose only, to address what many were already calling the greatest threat in galactic history. Dr. Kelnara stood at the central podium, her crystalline form dulled with exhaustion and fear. The confident xenobiologist who had classified humans just months ago was gone, replaced by a being who looked like she had stared into the abyss and found it staring back. Her hands shook as she activated the holographic displays, showing data that would change everything the Council thought they knew about the universe. Honored colleagues, she began, her voice carrying none of its former authority, I must formally revise our classification of the human species. They are not Category 7 harmless primitives. They are Category 1, apex predator species. The chamber erupted in chaos. Category 1 classifications were reserved for the most dangerous life forms in the galaxy. Species so lethal that contact was forbidden. In the Council's 1,000-year history, only 3 species had ever received such a designation, and 2 of them had been extinct for centuries. Admiral Vextar's 6 eyes focused on Kelnara with desperate intensity. His blue-scaled hide had turned pale with shock. How could we have missed this? Our survey teams are the best in the galaxy. We've successfully classified nearly 1,000 species. We assumed technological primitiveness indicated harmlessness, Kelnara replied, her words cutting through the assembly like ice. We failed to understand that humans aren't primitive at all. They're refined. Refined by constant warfare against equally intelligent opponents. The holographic displays shifted to show recent intelligence reports from across the galaxy. Human ships were appearing everywhere, but not in the way the Council had expected. These weren't invasion fleets or military expeditions. They were individual vessels, small groups of explorers and traders spreading through Council space like seeds on the cosmic wind. Commander Taithmore, his bark-covered limbs creaking with age and worry, studied the data streams. But they're not attacking anyone. These humans are trading, exploring, offering assistance to colonies in distress. That's what makes them so dangerous, whispered Dr. Velnara from her observation platform. They're integrating themselves into our society without firing a shot. The displays showed human merchant ships solving supply crises that had plagued outer colonies for years. Human engineers were fixing problems that Council specialists had declared impossible. Human doctors were treating diseases that had baffled galactic medicine for centuries. But it was the way they did these things that terrified the Council observers. A human cargo ship called the Persistence had encountered a Zephyrian colony ship whose life support systems were failing in deep space. The aliens had sent distress calls for days, expecting to die slowly as their air recyclers shut down one by one. The human response was to jury-rig a completely new life support system using spare parts from their own ship, tools that weren't meant for life support, and what they casually called creative engineering. Another incident showed a human exploration vessel, the Curiosity's Edge, discovering a derelict Council research station that had been abandoned after a reactor malfunction made it too dangerous to approach. The humans didn't see danger, they saw an interesting puzzle. Within hours, they had not only repaired the reactor but improved its efficiency by 30% using modifications that violated several laws of physics as the Council understood them. They treat impossible situations like minor inconveniences, Admiral Vextar observed, his voice filled with a mixture of awe and terror. What we call insurmountable challenges they call Tuesday. The most disturbing reports came from the Outer Rim, where human ships had begun encountering the galaxy's most dangerous phenomena. A vessel called the Iron Will had flown straight through a quantum storm that should have torn it apart at the molecular level. Instead of avoiding the storm like any sensible species would do, the humans had studied it, mapped it, and emerged with detailed information about quantum weather patterns that advanced galactic science by decades. President Williams' final transmission played across the chamber's speakers, her voice calm and reassuring. We're pleased to join your peaceful coalition. We promise to be good neighbors. But the Council now understood the unspoken truth behind those words. Humans had spent their entire evolutionary history fighting opponents who were exactly as intelligent, determined, and ruthless as they were. Every conflict had made them stronger, more adaptable, more creative in their solutions to impossible problems. The galaxy's most dangerous species had just promised to play nice, and that promise was somehow more terrifying than any threat could have been. As the emergency session continued through the night, reports kept flooding in from across Council space. Human ships were everywhere now, not conquering or destroying, but simply being human. They were solving problems that couldn't be solved, surviving situations that couldn't be survived, and doing it all with the casual confidence of a species that had never learned the word impossible. The final vote was unanimous. The Council's new official policy regarding humans would be carefully worded, diplomatically phrased, and absolutely clear to anyone who understood the implications. They are not the strongest, fastest, or smartest species in the galaxy. They are simply the only ones who never learned that some things cannot be done. The age of human expansion had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. V&D.